Hello everybody, BMS here, and welcome to Let's Play Metal Combat Falcon's Revenge for the Super Nintendo. Now most of you are probably aware that this is the sequel to Battle Clash and was designed for use with the Super Scope. Now, just as with Battle Clash, we've got a little bit of business to take care of before we can jump into this thing here. We're going to change our name, but in order to do that, at the title screen you need to input the code on Controller 1, hit LABL. That's right, label. And you'll be taken to this screen, in which you can type in whatever 6-letter name you so choose. Of course, you people on the forums voted for JB, a great homage to Metroid, so JB it shall be. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to be handling this LP in the fact that my first run-through is going to be with the Falcon on the normal mode, and then after I get done with that, I'm going to go back and play the hardest difficulty setting, high mode, with the unlockable ST, the Tornado. So anyway, with all that out of the way, let's get started, shall we? Alright, because this is for use with the Super Scope, of course, we're taking to our adjust aim so we can calibrate the scope. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense on the emulator, because we have that crosshair there, but, you know, it's required. But unlike Battle Clash, as soon as you calibrate your aim, you're taken to this tutorial session here, which you don't have to go through this every time, but if this is your first time playing the game, then it actually forces you to take part in this training session. Now, the training session is comprised of 7 lessons, and they cover everything from turbo shots, energy bolts, how to use your items, pretty much everything that you're going to need, including the new attack ability that we have here, which, if you'll notice, our heads-up display has been modified quite a bit from Battle Clash, especially the weapon charge area. As you can tell, there's a lot, well, quite a few different things about it, but we'll get into all that once we get to the appropriate lesson. Needless to say, it adds an entirely new dynamic to the combat system. Like I say, the first 4 lessons or so are really redundant. We've already used most of this stuff in Battle Clash, like the turbo shots, the energy bolts, so that'll give me plenty of time to go into some of the technical details of the game. Now, Metal Combat was released in 1993. December, I believe, here in the States, a little bit earlier in Europe, and what's odd is that this game actually had no Japanese release, which there's a lot of theories as to why that is. The most probable one is because, as bad a failure as the Super Scope was here in the States, it failed even harder, if you can believe this, over in Japan, so probably boiled down to that they were probably thinking, well, we're only going to sell about 2 copies, so fuck it. We'll just give it to the Americans. And another weird thing about that is that this is a mech fighting game, and usually the Japanese are all over those, but I guess their distaste for the Super Scope outweighed their love for mechs, so... back to the training mode for just a bit. I thought it was really nice that they actually included one this game. I mean, you know, Battle Clash, they just kind of threw you out to the wolves, which, you know, Battle Clash, it was a simple game. You charge up, you shoot, they die. There you go, that's the objective, which... The objective here in Metal Combat is pretty much the same. It's just, like I say, that new attack that you have, you know, it adds an entirely new dynamic to the combat system, and it's really nice that they just go through and explain everything to you. It doesn't decrease from the difficulty or anything like that. It just gives you an idea of what you're able to do, and it better sets you up to enjoy the game a lot better, and I just thought it was, you know, a nice touch that they should have included in Battle Clash, but at least they did here in Metal Combat, which... For me, it didn't really matter because I bought this one before Battle Clash, so yeah, there you go. Speaking of the difficulty, there's another point I need to touch on right there. I find that the difficulty of the high mode of Battle Clash, the hardest setting, is comparable to the normal mode here in Metal Combat, so needless to say, they've ramped up the difficulty quite a bit. But, you know, that's accordingly too, because you have this new attack, and if the enemies were the same difficulty as Battle Clash, you'd just be able to tear through them with little to no effort at all. And so it's really nice. It pretty much evens things up nicely here. And of course you still have the 3 higher difficulties here, low, medium, and high. High mode is ungodly difficult. Trust me, we'll be seeing that with the Tornado, but for now let's stick with the normal mode here. Something else that's special about this game is that most of you may or may not be aware that the SNES, instead of adding chips to increase its RAM to the console directly, they would add memory increasing chips, stuff like that, to the game cartridges. Probably the most famous would be like the Mega Man X games. I think it was the C3 chip or the CX chip, something like that. Gave it a lot more RAM, made the graphics a lot prettier, stuff like that. Well, Metal Combat did the same thing. It had the OBC1 chip, I believe. The only game for the SNES that actually had that chip. And what that basically did, number one, it increased the memory of the game, which allowed them to have more detailed sprites, I think better music, and even the Mode 7 foregrounds that move back and forth and all that, they're a lot sharper, a lot more crisp, and a lot more detailed than they were in Battle Clash. Plus, you can even interact with some of them. I know on the first level there's some trucks in the foreground, and if you shoot them, they'll blow up, which doesn't seem like much, but for back then in 1993, it was a really cool effect. It still is kind of to me, but, you know, that's just me. Anyway, here we are on level 5, lesson 5, and we're finally here discussing the new mechanic of the combat system. Hope I don't sound too redundant going over it, even though the lesson is as well, but maybe I can explain it in a little more detail. In Battle Clash, as you can see, you had your energy charging meter there, and you could only charge it up one level, and that was an energy bolt. Here you can see you have your stocked energy bolt level down there, and it's divided into thirds right there. Now, of course, 1/3 is the energy bolt from Battle Clash. Fairly good damage, can shoot down the stronger type bullets, stuff like that. Level 2 is a brown energy bolt, a level 2 energy bolt. A little stronger, fairly the same technique used as a normal energy bolt, but if you charge it up all the way, you can fire off what's called a treble energy bolt, which, in addition to doing an insane amount of damage if you can actually hit them with it, it also serves a different function. If you hit them center mass, there you go again, center mass, same as Battle Clash, but if you hit them center mass, usually on most of the STs, a certain part of their body will start to flash an orangey color. That's their weak point, and if you can destroy that or hit that with an energy bolt, you'll deal an insane amount of damage to them. And it's, like I say, it adds an entirely new mechanic to the combat system. Basically just another way to take out your opponent. And I think even the lesson mentioned that some of the STs can only be destroyed by shooting their weak point, so you have to find it first. Now, some of them, it'll damage them quite a bit, others not so much, and then there's some that if you shoot their weak point, it's a one-hit kill. So, its usefulness varies from enemy to enemy, but still, it's a good rule of thumb to go by. Shoot the weak point, there you go. And of course, once you complete all your lessons, you're given a mock battle game trial here against the ST Majin. And as you can see, you shoot her center mass, and her weak point is, well, she flashes you. Now this is one of the ones where if you shoot him in the weak point, it doesn't really damage her all that much, but really, it doesn't matter because it's pathetically easy. If you have problems with this, even if this is your first time playing the game, you probably ought to just give up, because that's about as easy as they come for any kind of a fight. As for the music of the game, Yuka Tsujiyoko returns. She was the same one that composed the music for Battle Clash. Well, she also probably more famous for her work on the Fire Emblem series, which, speaking of Fire Emblem, the little level up jingle here in Metal Combat is actually a remixed version of the level up jingle from the original Fire Emblem. A nice little homage that she was able to pull off there. Anyway, back on track, once you're done with the training session, it throws you immediately into the main game, the main battle game here. And as with Battle Clash, our first opponent is Guido in the Garum Mark II. And just like Battle Clash, he goes down fairly easy. Apparently he didn't learn that the bigger ST is a bad thing, so he made this one even, well, bigger. Poor guy. Shouldn't have any problems with this guy. Should go down in under 30 seconds. He has a few new techniques from Battle Clash, but nothing that should give you any trouble, especially on the normal difficulty. Back on the music. The music in this game really one-ups Battle Clash significantly. I mean, it's a lot better, it's a lot clearer, a lot crisper. It's not as repetitive. The tracks actually have some length to them now, although some of them do get a bit repetitive on some of the menus and such, but it's nothing that's going to bug the shit out of you or anything like that. The sound effects, in the same vein, they're very crisp, very clear, and more to the point, they're actually appropriate. I mean, if you shoot a turbo shot and it hits, it makes a little weak, dinky noise, and whereas if you shoot them with a treble energy bolt, it makes a little bit bigger of a boom, so to speak. So yeah, the sound is really well done in this game. Pretty much this game one-ups Battle Clash in every way possible. The graphics, the sound, the storyline, everything is a lot better, which is kind of rare nowadays, if you ask me, where a sequel actually takes everything that was good about the original, expands on it, but makes it better without overdoing it, you know? I mean, the cutscenes in this game, they actually fill you in on the story during the game, so you don't have to read the manual, but it's not overly done. I mean, you know, it's pretty much, okay, so that's why we're going around blowing all these fuckers up. Alright, thanks, nice, party on. You know, it's nothing that's going to drag on like a Kojima cutscene or anything like that. Anyway, our second boss is Siamang, the ST Siamang. The pilot's name is Chada, and he is the sworn brother of Guido. Apparently after the events of Battle Clash, they met somewhere in the Rockies, and, you know, one thing led to another, and they swore brotherhood to each other, something like that. I don't know, it's weird. Anyway, he's pretty much the opposite of Garum. Small, fast, and relatively weak. His weak point is his tail, as you saw there. A nice little factoid about this battle arena here is that if you notice in the background that aircraft carrier, that's actually the same one that we fought the ST Ivan on from Battle Clash. So that was a nice little throwback that they managed to add here. I mentioned the story before, a little bit about that. Basically, the really short version here is at the end of Battle Clash, Mike Anderson and ourselves, we beat the shit out of Anubis, supposedly killed him, and then afterwards the battle game was done away with, and Earth was able to begin its quote-unquote new Renaissance period. You know, people were out in the streets partying, Mardi Gras was brought back, you know, happy times, good fun times for everybody. Well, apparently 3 years after the end of Battle Clash, Anubis somehow revived, and somehow he was able to conquer the Earth in 3 days. I don't know why Mike didn't stop him. Maybe he was out on a bender when Anubis struck. You know, I don't know. Why bother with the details? Anyway, he conquered the Earth, and Metal Combat picks up with Mike Anderson out in the desert training to go beat the shit out of Anubis once more. And thus is the beginning plot of the game. It actually expands on this about halfway through, so that's not all there is to it. But yeah, so don't worry, it gets a lot better. Anyway, this is a good example of what I mentioned before of the interactive foregrounds there. Notice the Great Wall of China there. If you actually... the wall itself will actually block any shots that you shoot, so you have to be careful where you aim, because if you fire off an energy bolt at Wong there, and he darts behind the wall and the shot hits the wall, you know, it's going to block it. It's a nice little effect that they added, but it can get annoying. But it's not really too bad. About the graphics part again, by the way, somebody mentioned in the thread that the designs on the enemy STs are rather Metroidish, if that's a word I can use there, and that their shoulder pads are big and bulky, which, you know, now that I look at it, I never really paid attention to that before, but now that I look at it, that's pretty true, actually. Probably has something to do with the fact that the producer of both Battle Clash and Metal Combat was Gunpei Yokoi of Metroid fame, pretty much the Mr. Metroid, if you want to call him that. So yeah, that may have something to do with it. Anyway, so here we are at the top of the orbital ring station Babel. Apparently Mike thought he was going to be rather sly and climb up the elevator on the outside, you know, hopefully avoiding any kind of battle, but unfortunately this fucker showed up, so now we gotta deal with him. He is the first of Anubis' 2 generals. His name is Oruso, which is an anagram of Horus, which, if you know your Egyptian mythology, Horus was the counterpart of Anubis. Fun fact, aren't I just full of shit like that? It's amazing, I know, thank you, thank you. Now, this battle is pretty much a throwback to the one we had with the ST Artemis from Battle Clash. You remember the crazy bitch that jumped off the mountain? Yeah. It's entirely vertical, there is no second phase to it. In fact, there are no second phases to any of the fights in this game, but they do throw in a gimmick about halfway through that makes up for this, so we'll be on the lookout for that. Now, if you're like me, going by what this guy said the first time I played through, I thought there may have been, you know, some kind of special time limit that we may have been under, you know, before we get burned up by re-entry. No, there's not. Nothing of the sort. Aside from the standard 10-minute rule, which, by the way, I don't think I've mentioned that before. If any battle, this one, the one against Garum, doesn't matter. Any battle takes at least 10 minutes. If you last at least 10 minutes, then you automatically die. Which, to be honest, if any battle legitimately takes you 10 minutes long, you've earned that death. I mean, fucking seriously. Anyway, once we beat Oruso, we're greeted by this lady, which, to be honest, why did we even jump off you know, if it was me, I would have just fucking let the other guy jump off. Then I would have taken the elevator to the moon, but, you know, Mike, you know, what can I say? Mike's a fucking idiot. He jumped off after him. Anyway, we meet this crazy lady who promises to tow our ST free of the gravitational pull of the Earth and all that shit. And she also gives us the V system, which you all should remember that from Battle Clash. Fuck yeah. And with that out of the way, we can go back to Moonbase Luna, another battle that we had on Battle Clash. So, Carlos returns. You should remember him from Battle Clash. He was the penultimate boss that piloted the ST Baron. And he returns here. You can tell he's trying to cover up the scar we gave him from Battle Clash there, but you can still see it. He's got that red eye there, and he's got his new and improved ST, Viscount. Which a fun fact about that is that a Viscount is actually one rank higher than a Baron in the British class system. So, you know, he upgraded Baron, renamed it Viscount, which I believe actually, to be technically correct, the proper pronunciation is Viscount, but the game calls it Viscount, so okay, I'll be a rebel too and call it Viscount as well. Why not? The battle is really very similar to the one we had with him in Battle Clash, other than his gun is a lot bigger, as you can see, which really helps us out. Number one, it can fire off a lot more powerful shots at us, sure, but it's also a bigger target, so it makes it even easier to destroy. And just as in with Battle Clash, if you destroy his gun, he will throw his shield at you immediately after, or he should. Anytime now, Mr. Viscount. He seems to be taking his sweet-ass time. Well, normally he will throw his shield at us, so apparently he doesn't want to obey his pattern, so fuck you, Viscount. Oh, there he goes. Okay, fine. Anyway, take out his shield, and he's pretty much defenseless again. You cannot permanently demobilize him like you could in Battle Clash, but it really doesn't matter. Yeah, he's fairly easy once you get rid of his gun. He is probably the fastest enemy that we've encountered so far, but his speed really doesn't help him all that much. On the normal difficulty. Now, on the higher difficulties, this guy is fucking hard as hell. But yeah, we'll be seeing that later. So, after we beat Viscount, he goes into this long backstory about how, you know, after we beat him in Battle Clash, he lost himself, jumped at the opportunity to rejoin Anubis because he knew that he'd get a rematch with us. About the only useful thing that he has to say, though, is that Anubis somehow fled to Mars, so that's our next goal. Plus, we got the Plasma Bomb, which, a little note on the items, the method to get the items in this game is a lot more structured, shall we say, than it was in Battle Clash. So yeah, I'll be able to show off all the items later on. Now, a question I have here is, apparently our ST is capable of interstellar travel, alright? We went from the moon to Mars, fine. Yet it cannot escape the force of re-entry. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Sure, why not? But like I say, fucking details. Who needs that shit, right? Yeah. So, okay, here we are. Anubis, the big baddie from Battle Clash. As you can see, he's been kind of Borgified there. Kind of resembles the guy from Battle Clash, but apparently we really fucked him up last time, so now he's mostly machine. His ST is a lot bigger, basically, mainly due to the increased graphic capability of the game, but I'll just say the in-game reason is that he has a lot more shit that he can shoot at you. But overall, he doesn't have a second form or anything like that, so it's not a big threat. You just have to watch out because he can overwhelm your ass if you're not careful. He has no definitive weak point either, so basically just shoot center mass, or if you want to be a sadistic bastard like me, blow off his arms and legs, because, yeah, those are his main weapons there. Also, this one hurts a lot if it hits. Avoid that if you can. But yeah, now that we've disarmed him there, yeah, he goes down without much of a fight. Poor guy. What a shame. How sad. Too bad. So yeah, there he goes. Typical bad guy speech. Can't believe I lost to such a thing. And with that, Mike decides to start throwing cheesy one-liners at him like any good protagonist from the 90s would. Anyway, I don't know where we are. We're in some kind of nether realm there, apparently. From my understanding, he's able to transport us, like, inside the planet or something like that. I don't know. I don't know the detail behind that at all. Anyway, this chick saves us. And that ST, by the way, is called the Spica. A pacifist ST, by the way. Her name is Rolla, the same name as the training instructor. Coincidence? We shall ever wonder, I guess. And this is where she fills us in on the extra part of the story. Now, the story does get even more in detail during the final battles of the game, but for now this is going to have to do. Apparently, the real enemy awaits even deeper in outer space, but we'll find out that next time. As you can see, we've got to go to Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus. Fun times ahead, oh indeed. Anyway, this has been BMS. Next time we'll tackle the outer space STs. Fun times indeed. Catch you later.